A frozen slope in the northern Ural Mountains. Silence dominates the landscape, broken only by the wind dragging snow across a torn canvas. A tent, collapsed, partially buried, sits abandoned in the open. No signs of struggle, no immediate explanation. Then, further down on the slope, bodies, scattered, frozen in unnatural positions, some barefoot, others barely clothed against temperatures that drop far below survival limits. This wasn't just a failed expedition, because whatever happened here forced 9 experienced climbers to leave safety behind and walk into the darkness, knowing they might not survive. When investigators first arrived, they noticed something that immediately broke the logic of the scene. The tent hadn't been opened from the outside, it had been cut from within. Long, deliberate slashes carved through the fabric. Not random, not accidental, a decision made under pressure. Inside, boots were still neatly arranged, food untouched, equipment left behind. Everything they needed to stay alive, abandoned in seconds. Which raises a question that still has no answer. What could possibly make trained climbers believe that staying inside the tent was more dangerous than facing the freezing night outside? This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident, a case that has resisted explanation for decades, not because there are no theories, but because none of them fully work. Every explanation seems convincing until you look closer, because each one solves part of the mystery and leaves the rest untouched. And the deeper you go into the details, the more unsettling the contradictions become. At the center of the expedition was Igor Dyatlov, just 23 years old, but already known for discipline, precision, and control. He wasn't reckless, he wasn't impulsive. Among his peers, he had built a reputation for understanding risk and managing it carefully. This wasn't his first expedition, and it wasn't even his most dangerous, which creates a dangerous implication. If something went wrong that night, it wasn't because they were unprepared. The group itself was made up of highly trained hikers, students and graduates who had already completed long-distance winter expeditions under extreme conditions. They understood terrain, they respected weather, and most importantly, they knew exactly what mistakes could cost them their lives. These weren't people who panic easily, which leads to a critical conclusion. When they left that tent, they knew exactly what they were risking. Their objective was ambitious, but entirely within their capabilities. A Category 3 expedition, the highest level of difficulty at the time. The route would take them deep into the Ural Mountains, across remote, snow-covered terrain where mistakes are unforgiving. But everything had been planned, supplies carefully calculated, routes mapped, contingencies considered. There was no indication that this expedition would end differently from the others they had already completed. And that's what makes the outcome so difficult to accept. In January of 1959, the group began their journey. Spirits were high, their progress was steady and controlled. Through diaries and photographs, we see a team working together, adapting to conditions, maintaining morale, solving problems as they arise. There is no fear, no hesitation, no sign that anything is wrong. And that's exactly what makes what happens next so disturbing, because it comes without warning. Early in the expedition, one member, Yuri, fell ill and made the decision to turn back. It was logical, responsible, the kind of decision experienced hikers are trained to make. At the time, it seemed insignificant, but in hindsight, it becomes something else entirely, because he would be the only one who made it out alive. As the group pushed deeper into the mountains, conditions became harsher, winds intensified, temperatures dropped even further, but still, nothing outside expectation. Their journals remained calm, structured, professional. They adjusted their route when necessary, managed their energy, stayed in control. Up to this point, everything was going exactly as planned. The final diary entries reveal no panic, no urgency, just routine documentation, weather conditions, distance covered, minor challenges. Even as the environment became more hostile, their tone didn't change. If something was coming, they didn't see it. And that's what makes the shift so sudden, so unnatural. But then there's one detail that doesn't fit. One of the last photographs taken shows something in the distance, a figure or something that resembles one, partially obscured, blending into the environment. It's unclear what it is, a member of the group, a trick of light, or something else entirely. But what makes it unsettling is that no one has ever been able to explain it with certainty. When the group failed to return on schedule, it didn't immediately trigger alarm. Delays were expected in expeditions like this. Weather could slow progress, routes could change, but as days passed and then weeks, concern began to grow. Eventually, search teams were organized and sent into the mountains. What they found didn't bring answers. It brought confusion. The tent was located first, partially collapsed, buried under snow. But it wasn't the condition of the tent that stood out. It was what had happened inside it. The cuts in the fabric were unmistakable, clean, deliberate, made from the inside. This wasn't damage caused by weather or animals. It was a choice. Something inside that tent made them believe that escaping immediately through the walls was safer than taking the time to exit normally. And that kind of decision doesn't happen without a reason. Inside, everything was still there. Boots, coats, supplies, equipment. The very items that meant survival in that environment. They didn't just leave in a hurry. They left as if those things no longer mattered, as if whatever was happening made survival itself secondary. Footprints led away from the tent, descending the slope. But here's where the story breaks completely. The tracks weren't chaotic. They weren't running. They were walking, calm, controlled. And yet, many of them were barefoot. Others wore only socks, which creates a contradiction that still hasn't been resolved. Why would experienced climbers walk calmly into freezing darkness without the one thing they knew they needed to survive? This suggests something critical. Whatever forced them out didn't just create panic, it overrode logic. Because this wasn't a mistake, it was a decision made under pressure. The first bodies were found near a tree at the edge of the forest. 2 of them, barely clothed. Between them, remnants of a fire, burnt branches, charred wood, signs of an attempt to survive. But it wasn't enough. Hypothermia had already taken hold, and this is where the situation begins to escalate. Above them, broken branches revealed something else. Someone had climbed the tree several meters high, enough to snap thick limbs. This wasn't random, it was intentional. They were trying to see something back toward the tent, and that raises a question that still has no clear answer. What were they looking at in the darkness? Because whatever it was, it kept them from going back. More bodies were found between the tree and the tent. Their positions told a clear story. They were moving uphill, back toward the tent, which changes everything because it means that at some point they believed returning was safer than staying away, and that creates a disturbing possibility. Whatever drove them out may not have stayed there. Months later, the final 4 bodies were discovered under melting snow in a ravine, far from the others, as if they had taken a different path, made a different decision. But what investigators found next would redefine the entire case. The injuries didn't make sense. Crushed ribs, severe skull fractures, trauma so intense it was compared to high-speed car accidents. But there was a problem. Almost no external wounds, no cuts, no bruises matching that level of force. It was as if something had applied massive pressure without leaving visible marks on the surface. And this is where every theory begins to break, because no single explanation accounts for that kind of damage. Among these victims was another unsettling detail. One of them was missing a tongue along with soft tissue damage. There are natural explanations, decomposition, scavengers, but in the context of everything else, it doesn't feel isolated. It feels like part of a larger pattern. Then came the radiation findings. Some clothing showed elevated levels of radiation, not enough to be immediately lethal, but enough to raise serious questions. And more importantly, it wasn't present on all of them, only certain individuals, which makes it harder to explain. The official conclusion was brief and vague. The group had died due to a compelling natural force. No detailed explanation, no breakdown of events, just a label placed over something that clearly wasn't understood. And then the case was closed. But that explanation doesn't resolve anything. It doesn't explain the injuries. It doesn't explain the behavior. It doesn't explain the radiation. And most importantly, it doesn't explain why they left the tent. In recent years, one theory has gained significant attention: a rare type of avalanche known as a slab avalanche. Unlike the chaotic, destructive avalanches most people imagine, this type can occur suddenly, silently, and with devastating precision. A compact layer of snow can crack and slide, creating enough force to threaten anyone in its path. In this scenario, the group may have believed their tent was about to be buried, forcing them to act instantly. Cutting their way out would make sense. Leaving quickly would make sense, but only for the first few minutes of the story. Because once you move beyond that initial moment, the theory begins to collapse. The slope where the tent was found does not show clear evidence of a large avalanche. The tent itself, while damaged, was not crushed in the way you would expect. And most importantly, the group didn't behave like people escaping an avalanche. They didn't run, they didn't scatter in panic. They walked slowly, deliberately, which creates a contradiction that this theory cannot resolve. Why would trained climbers calmly move away from danger without attempting to return once it had passed? Other explanations move in a very different direction. Some suggest military involvement, secret Soviet weapons testing conducted in remote areas of the Ural Mountains, experimental explosives, airborne pressure waves, or even classified technology could, in theory, explain the internal injuries found on the bodies. A powerful shock wave could cause damage similar to what was observed: massive internal trauma without external wounds. And the radiation? That could also fit. But again, the timeline doesn't fully align. And more importantly, there is no definitive evidence placing such a test exactly where the group was that night. Then there is the infrasound theory, one of the most unsettling because of how invisible it is. Under certain wind conditions, the shape of the mountain could generate low-frequency sound waves, frequencies so low that they cannot be consciously heard, but can still affect the human body. These waves have been linked to anxiety, panic, and even a sense of dread. If the group was exposed to this phenomenon, it could explain the sudden urgency, the need to escape the tent immediately. But once again, it only explains behavior, not the injuries, not the radiation, and not what happened afterward. And then we reach the theories that exist at the edge of explanation. Reports of strange lights in the sky were documented by witnesses in nearby regions around the same time. Bright, moving spheres, silent, distant, unexplained. Some believe these were military flares, others suggest atmospheric phenomena, and some consider the possibility that something unknown was present that night, something not yet understood. There is no concrete evidence to confirm this, but there is also no evidence strong enough to completely dismiss it. Because when all the pieces are placed together, something becomes clear. No single theory explains everything. Not the behavior, not the injuries, not the environment, not the sequence of events. Each explanation feels incomplete, as if it's only describing one part of a much larger picture. And that's what makes this case different. It doesn't fail because of a lack of answers. It fails because there are too many answers and none of them fit. What we do know is this: something happened that night. Something sudden enough to force 9 experienced climbers out of their shelter. Something powerful enough to override training, logic, and survival instinct. Because leaving that tent wasn't just a mistake, it was a decision. A decision made under pressure, in conditions where hesitation means death. And that decision didn't end at the tent. It continued down the slope, into the forest, toward the tree, toward the ravine. At multiple points, the group made choices, splitting, regrouping, attempting to return. This wasn't a single moment of panic, it was a sequence of actions, which suggests something even more unsettling. Whatever they were reacting to didn't disappear immediately. At some point, they tried to go back to the tent, back to their equipment, back to safety, but they never made it. One by one, they collapsed in the snow, not far from where they started, close enough to see the slope they had fled from, but never close enough to reach it again. 9 people, fully trained, fully aware of the risks, and still, they walked away from everything that could have saved them, not blindly, not randomly, but in a way that suggests they believed they had no other choice. And that is the most disturbing part of all, because it forces one final question: what could make survival feel like the wrong decision? Because in the end, the Dyatlov Pass Incident is not just about how they died, it's about the moment they chose to leave. The exact second when staying inside that tent became impossible, because whatever they saw, whatever they heard, or whatever they felt, it was enough to make them step out into the freezing darkness, knowing they might not come back. And if 9 experienced climbers, people trained to survive the impossible, could be pushed to that point, then the real mystery isn't just what happened on that mountain, it's whether it could happen again.